Good morning, Wabash. Today speaking at Pioneer Chapel is Tyler Wade with his talk entitled The Sharpening of the Wabash Mind. Tyler Wade graduated from Wabash College in 2012 and went on to earn his master's degree in student affairs and higher education at Miami University. He has worked in the enrollment office since 2014 and currently serves as Associate Director of Enrollment Systems. In addition to his administrative duties, Wade recruits the Putnam County, Indiana, Northeast Indiana, Texas, the Great Plains, and the Rocky Mountain Empire. A native to Greencastle, T. Wade serves most of his time watching sports, talking politics, reading books, and drinking coffee. Wade also serves on the Greencastle City Council. Please join me in welcoming Tyler Wade.
Good morning, Wabash. I want to thank the Sphinx Club for their invitation to speak to you all this morning. I have to be honest, there's nothing quite like the rush of writing a speech in 48 hours. Thankfully, though, it has given me an opportunity to relive a part of my past as a student at Wabash. And in fact, I tried to apply that lesson in writing the speech today, in that, it's important to answer the prompt, stick to what you know, and where possible, quote liberally from people smarter than you. So hopefully I've done some combination of that today. It also involves some long afternoons and nights in the Lilly Library working on deadline. And I guess, by the way, when did they start closing the library at midnight? That's often when most of the best ideas come to mind. In all seriousness, though, I am excited to have another chance to speak from this podium. Chapel is one of my favorite traditions at Wabash. It is a time each week, well, usually each week, when our community comes together to talk about issues of importance. I am fascinated by people and the exchange of ideas, and I am passionate about intentionally creating spaces where people can come together and participate in conversation. That is what I love about Chapel and what I love about Wabash College. So, to that end, let's talk about the sharpening of the Wabash mind. For those who do not understand the reference, which I'm guessing is most of you, in 1987, a philosopher named Allen Bloom wrote a surprise bestseller titled The Closing of the American Mind. In his book, Bloom offered a critique of higher education in America. Basically, he argues that by upholding values like openness and relativism as the most important principles of academia, colleges are closing the American mind off to other ideas or ways of looking at the world. Bloom's work was very polarizing. Conservatives gave Bloom high praise for his acerbic takedown of university elites. Liberals argued that Bloom was simply against the cultural values adopted by a younger generation. For Bloom, universities, and really the entire educational system, has created a society in which people do not believe in any truths and see everything as relative. With his book, Bloom sparked a conversation about the purpose, structure, and function of higher education in America. However, he was also connecting higher education to our larger culture, arguing that the university is both impacted by and impactful to the culture in which we live. In a follow-up to Bloom's work, Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt published The Coddling of the American Mind in 2018. Lukianoff and Haidt chronicle many incidents of what they see as college administrators gone wild. They open with this sobering assessment of the modern university. The culture on many college campuses has become more ideologically uniform, comprising the ability of scholars to seek truth and of students to learn from a broad range of thinkers. Extremists have proliferated on the far right and the far left, provoking one another to ever deeper levels of hatred. Social media has channeled partisan passions into the creation of a call-out culture. Anyone can be publicly shamed for saying something well-intentioned that someone else interprets uncharitably. New media platforms and other outlets allow citizens to retreat into self-confirmatory bubbles where their worst fears about the evils of the other side can be confirmed and amplified by extremist and cyber trolls intent on sowing discord and division. Haidt and Lukianoff go on to attack the idea of trigger warnings and safe spaces and worry about the fragility of students who feel harmed by words and thoughts. They argue college students' beliefs about their own and others' fragility in the face of ideas they dislike cause them to believe they can't handle such disagreements, and by acting on this belief and avoiding exposure to any idea that harms them, over time, the student actually becomes less capable of dealing with differences of opinion. Lukianoff and Haidt argue we are creating fragile students who see danger in every corner and who need safe spaces to be protected from ideas, beliefs, and opinions they find objectionable so they can be free from disagreements and thus happy. While Bloom, Lukianoff, and Haidt are a little over the top, the effects of their rhetoric have been successful. Their criticisms of higher education as a den of liberal elites indoctrinating students with moral relativism is an argument you can hear each night from Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity on Fox News, or from young conservative commentators like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk, who have hundreds of thousands of listeners each week and who are especially popular among students on college campuses. It is this suspicion of higher education in America that leads to statistics like this. In 2019, the Pew Foundation released a report that said 59% of Republicans believe that universities have a negative impact on the way things are going in this country. Let me repeat that. In 2019, the Pew Foundation reported that 59% of Republicans believe that universities have a negative impact on the way things are going in this country. That statistic should scare everyone in this room, especially because many of our students come from Indiana, a state that has, at least in recent history, been solidly Republican. These negative views of higher education pose an existential threat to many colleges and universities across this country. We face this existential crisis because we have made higher education a commodity. By continuing to increase tuition and fees at levels higher than the rate of inflation, colleges and universities have put themselves in a negative position. By charging our consumers more, we face greater competition for students. Thus, we spend more money on recruiting and retaining students. We have given students and their families a greater ability to use the power of the dollar to try and force colleges and universities to evolve to keep students happy. To that end, we add on programs and administrative staffs to respond to student and parent concerns. This expansive administrative staff demands more financial support and colleges are forced to make tough decisions about raising tuition and fees and cutting programs and services. The key to this process, then, is to figure out how to be responsible stewards of our resources and to do so in such a way that does not take away from the ethos or core mission of the institution, which is, in my mind, the continual sharpening of the Wabash Mind. I was very disheartened last fall when the college announced it would stop awarding sheepskin diplomas. But my disappointment was not in the decision. I could not care less about what kind of paper my diploma is printed on. What hurt most was hearing students, alumni, and parents question the administration and our commitment to making the Wabash experience as good as it can be. I take that criticism personally. When you criticize the administration, you are talking about people like me. And I can assure you what is most important to me is doing everything that I can to make Wabash the best it can be. I believe my colleagues feel the exact same way. That is why we constantly think about what it means to develop a culture of continuous improvement. This college is always looking with a critical eye for ways we can further advance our mission of educating young men to think critically, act responsibly, lead effectively, and live humanely. From our earliest days, Wabash has had a fighting tradition. That is evident in our motto, Wabash always fights, and the Latin inscription on the college's seal, Scientia et Virtute, which roughly translates to know-how and guts. If you need reminding of our fighting spirit, you need look no further than 3 books of Wabash history, and I think you could pick up most of these in the library now. Wabash on My Mind by former President Byron Trippett, These Fleeting Years, which is a collection of stories and speeches from Wabash's first 150 years, edited by Robert S. Harvey, and Wabash College, the first 100 years, by James Inley Osborne and Theodore Gregory Gronert. For example, take this text on the Wabash tradition from Dean George V. Kendall. The men who built this college and kept it going could not have succeeded without the kind of spirit that will not quit, even when the struggle looks hopeless. Our fighting tradition is also a thinking tradition. Proposed innovations have seldom or never been adopted in the conduct of the college without prolonged consideration. On the other hand, things as they are have seldom been found satisfactory. Criticism, experiment, and revision go on almost constantly. In short, the habit of Wabash is one of lively, questioning criticism, both of the college and of matters of public interest. Settling down placidly in the status quo and restless, headlong pursuits of the latest fads are the two non-thinking extremes which, in the main, our tradition at Wabash has not included. You see, Wabash has always had a fighting tradition, a tradition that welcomes debate and challenges us to maintain that culture of continuous improvement. Here's another chapter from our past, this one from Dean Ben Rogi's speech at the senior breakfast prior to commencement in June of 1963 about what it takes to be a good alumnus. He writes that a Wabash alumnus should hold strong to appreciating diversity of thought and opinion. Wabash alumni should, quote, demand of your college that its faculty contain real diversity of point of view on the great issues of human affairs. You should demand that the college always remain true to the words of political theorist John Stuart Mill, that there is always hope when men are forced to listen to both sides of a question. Our tradition of spirited debate, progress, revision, and continuous improvement is one we must cherish, defend, and proselytize. The fact of the matter is, it is becoming harder to recruit students to a small, private, liberal arts college for men in rural Indiana. In fact, according to surveys we've done of admitted students, the 4 biggest reasons students cite for not choosing Wabash are that they don't believe in the value of the liberal arts, they don't want to go to a college for men, they aren't crazy about Crawfordsville, and they don't think Wabash is worth the cost. But our tradition is one that's worth fighting for. That's why there are hundreds of people on this campus who fight every day to make Wabash better and to secure our future. My colleagues in enrollment and athletics travel across the country to meet with prospective students and their families. They visit with college counselors, high school coaches, and community organizations to convince them that the world needs Wabash men and that young men need a place like Wabash. Our advancement officers also travel the country, meeting with alumni and their partners, parents, and friends of the college, soliciting financial support to make sure that Wabash remains affordable and financially viable. Everyone on this campus, from campus services to administrative support staff to faculty and our leadership, are totally and completely focused on doing the best they can for this special place. They deserve your applause and support. To that end, if you're on the payroll for Wabash College, please stand and be recognized. This place could not work without you. You see, the fact of the matter is this: everyone in this room chose to be here. You made the choice to come to school here, to teach here, to work here, to send your sons here, or to marry someone who works here. For many of you, this was a tough decision. You had to justify to your peers why it made sense to pledge your allegiance to this small, private, quirky, single-sex college in the middle of the Indiana woods. I'm guessing many of you chose this path because, as Dean Rogi so eloquently put it, this is a college which seems to be able to influence the lives of those young men who attend it, to provide them with an experience strong in its impact on what they are, what they think and say and do, and how they think and say and do it. It is a college which commands affection and loyalty, and, at its best, is a lifelong inspiration to its graduates to seek to become something better than they are. There are more than 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States, and yet, for some reason, you chose to come here. Many of you came here because of your strong belief in the benefits of a liberal arts education. The style of education we offer here is under constant assault in the press, in classrooms, and in the halls of power. Wabash is located in a state where the president of one of our 2 main public universities is a former 2-term governor who believes that college should be short, cheap, and 100% focused on career preparation. And his belief has become standard across much of the state of Indiana. While value, cost, and quality are important, they are not the only measuring stick that matters. Liberal arts colleges like Wabash exist because they provide a commitment to a concept of education that gives highest priority to intellectual and emotional preparation for a living rather than to preparation for how to make a living. Here at Wabash, we offer what former President Byron Trippett called, quote, an impractical education, unless, in the long run, an education which strives primarily to produce good human beings and good citizens is the most practical of all educations. The future of higher education in America looks rough. Many observers predict waves of college and university closures in the coming years. The book, Demographics and the Demand for Higher Education, by Nathan Graw, paints a bleak picture of the impact of the coming demographic apocalypse. I tried to say that a couple times fast. Due to the Great Recession, the number of students graduating from high school and matriculating to colleges and universities will fall precipitously in the coming decades, especially in the Northeast and the Midwest. America continues to become more racially and ethnically diverse, and colleges and universities must evolve to make sure we are representative of and open to diversity and inclusion. Wabash College is a special place, and it's one that's worth fighting for. We're not perfect. No college is. We could do a better job of recruiting and retaining students of color and in hiring faculty and staff of color. We can improve the student experience, focus on supporting student success, and be as proud of the robust mental health of our students as we are of the number of them who reach their first destinations within 6 months of graduation. The challenges we face in our future are great. Our workers are few and our time is short, but our community has a fighting tradition that rebuilt the college in the wake of a disastrous fire in our early years, a fighting tradition that sends ambassadors to the far reaches of the earth to secure our financial future, a fighting tradition that answered the call and survived through the Civil War, World War I, the Great Depression, World War II, Vietnam, and the Great Recession, a fighting tradition that has persevered through difficult debates on coeducation and curricular revision, a fighting tradition that has withstood waves of faculty retirements and continues to find new scholars and teachers who make Wabash classrooms awesome launch pads for learning and discovery. It is that same fighting tradition that will help us all to find ways to make continuous improvements so that Wabash College can continue to be a place that offers a world-class education at an affordable price. It is also the kind of place that is committed to bringing better men to a world that desperately needs them. Wabash always fights. Always means always. Thank you.